Is there any objections to the recording from the people that are in the call?
Okay, all right, thank you.
There are no objections?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can proceed on, so.
Okay, thank you. So following the call, we'll upload the video, the recording of this call along with the set of slides so that everyone has them. All right, so Carrie, if you could just go to the first slide. So for the agenda this afternoon, it's just broken up into a number of charts that we're going to go through. First, we're going to look at the preparation that the club needs to do, or the current executive needs to do in advance of their AGM, how the AGM agenda should be set, some of the meeting procedures that are required, the official reports that are expected to be presented at the AGM. We'll go through the process for the election of officers, preparation of motions, the executive committee, the structure and the responsibilities. We'll just touch on subcommittees. They're not something that actually gets voted on at an AGM, but they can be an offshoot of after the fact, when to deal with specific events, etc. And we'll also just touch on the club constitution. So we go to the next slide. So the club AGM, as communicated to all clubs, you have to hold your AGM by the end of October, and that's the same every year. It is considered the most important meeting of the year, and it should be organized as well in accordance with the rules that are laid out in the club constitution. Last week, I sent everyone a copy of the newest version that we had. There were some changes that were made to the club constitution at the GAA Congress held earlier this year. So the existing club constitution is what is considered the one that all clubs need to abide by the rules in that. And so that's how it should be organized in terms of the quorum for your meeting, the way the election should take place, etc. Every club is required by rule to have a club executive committee in place. You can also have a number of subcommittees in place to help with certain aspects of administration and activities. So the key objectives really of the AGM are to review the work of the previous year, review your financials, review the financial statements, elect your executive committee members, review the existing county bylaws and propose motions to amend, and have some discussion around the strategy and plans for the club for the upcoming year and the years beyond that. Next slide, Carrie. So in preparing it, there is a bit of work that is involved in preparing it. The executive committee, they need to confirm the logistics of the AGM, when they're going to hold that, where it's going to be held, expected duration of the meeting, and as well set up in place, especially now with these COVID times, the remote access availability. In advance of the meeting, you should be distributing nomination forms to your members and advise on the committee positions that are available for the following year, and ensure that all the forms are returned in advance of the AGM. So the positions that get elected for the executive committee, those should just be listed, and anyone in your club has the opportunity to put their name forward for a position. I did send out some forms, a standard form that we use at the county level. So the individual would sign that, and then they would get another individual to second their nomination. As well, the executive committee of each of the clubs should be distributing the county bylaws that are in place to your members. And that's really so everyone has a view of the bylaws, as well as the official guide and the rules of the GAA to members, and to get some feedback maybe on proposed new motions or amendments to existing bylaws. And then you also need to forward the following to your club members at least 10 days ahead of your AGM. So you should be forwarding them the agenda with the details of the time, the date, location, etc. Your previous year's minutes so that they are able to review that. The secretary's report, your financial statements, and other reports if they're pertinent. You may have had a certain subcommittee in place or some activities that took place. So you want to make sure that they have all of those reports in hand prior to the meeting. As well, they should receive a copy of the nominations that have been received. And then copies of any motions or amendments for consideration that they are also received. So in advance of the meeting, you're giving your members that opportunity to review the information that's going to be presented, gives them an opportunity to maybe jot down some questions or that they would want to ask at the meeting. So they come prepared. So any questions on the preparation? Okay. Go to the next slide. So a sample agenda, just put together a sample agenda, and this is typically what we have at the county level. You know, you assemble for your meeting, do a roll call, welcome everyone, and then a call of the meeting to order. Just as a reminder, it's paid up club members are entitled to be present at the AGM. Then you typically hold a minute of silence to honor any deceased members within the club or within the community. There's the adoption of standing orders. Most clubs have their own in place. I did forward a copy that gets used at the county level. So if a club wants to use that and adopt that, so those are read and they have to be proposed, accepted, and seconded. The next on the agenda would be the minutes of the previous year's AGM. So those get read. The secretary's report, the treasurer's financial report. Then the chairperson gives the address, just gives their report on the previous year. There then is the election of officers and members of the executive committee. And then discussion and voting on any submitted motions, and then other business. And I'll talk about why I have that in quotation marks a little later. So if we go to the next slide, Carrie.
Angela, for that, is it, just as a comment, is it the secretary that starts and reads out all, like basically does all of the first sort of 4 or 5 bullet points?
Yeah.
Generally, or?
It should be, yes. Yeah.
Any other questions on the agenda?
Okay, so meeting procedures. As noted, the secretary will read out the standing orders, and those have to be adopted. Need to be read. They need to be proposed, accepted, and seconded. Then similarly with the previous year's AGM minutes, the secretary will read those out. Same again, those need to be read, proposed, accepted, and seconded. The secretary's report, obviously read by the secretary. It's a report. It's highlighting the activities of the club over the past year. The floor is then open to questions, and a request then is made to propose that the report is accepted and seconded. Next, the treasurer will report on the financials for the past year, outlining the income, the expenditure, and the financial position of the club. Again, the floor is open to any questions from members. A request then is made to propose that the report is accepted and seconded. And then the chairperson's address. Club chairperson provides their address to the club members. It should highlight the accomplishments and challenges of the past year. Any questions there? Okay. The election of the executive committee. So only full members whose memberships fees are paid up and who are not suspended or disqualified shall be eligible for election. The voting system that you plan to use, if you have multiple individuals who are running for a specific position, it should be decided in advance of the elections and should be clearly explained to everyone at the meeting. So you may decide that you'll take a vote and there'll be a show of hands, yay or nay, or a certain individual, or you may want to do that by private ballot. So that again is a decision that the current committee needs to make in advance. A club member who's not seeking a position may be asked to chair the election and count the votes. So if you have somebody there who is willing to do that, they should be the one that takes their seat and commences the election of the committee. Minutes should record the name, the proposer, and the seconder for each candidate, the number of votes received for each candidate, and the successful candidate. Just a note that the child protection officer in each club, that is an appointed position, and it is appointed by the outgoing committee. So it is not a position that would be elected on the day. Following the elections, then the new committee are now in place and are responsible for directing the balance of the annual meeting. And from a minute-taking perspective, the outgoing secretary should take the minutes of the meeting up until the election of officers, and after which the incoming secretary will be responsible for minutes for the balance of that meeting. Any questions on the meeting procedures? Any comment? Sean, any comment on that, or is that?
I'm all good, Angela. Thank you.
All right, next slide, Carrie. Talked about discussion and voting on submitted motions. So motions for consideration by the county convention shall be submitted only by clubs and the county committee. The submission of new motions proposed or amendments to existing bylaws or rules must be completed on the form that has been provided with the county by the county in accordance with Rule 3.14. And I have distributed that form to all clubs. A motion from a club shall have been approved by an annual or a special general meeting of the club, and the date of such a meeting shall be shown on the motion paper. So it's a discussion may be held at your AGM, or you may convene a special meeting in advance of the county meeting if there is a desire to put forward a motion. And again, it has to be voted on by your club, and the details of when that meeting took place noted on the form. Clubs should appoint in advance a member of their club to speak to that motion at the county AGM. And should the motion be considered in order, it is proposed and it will be proposed and seconded at the county AGM, debated and voted on. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Sean, but it's a 60% majority is required in order for a motion to be passed. Any other questions on motions or bylaws? Okay.
So Angela, can I just comment there?
Yes.
So the 60% is for amendments to existing rules or bylaws.
Okay.
And it's a simple majority for brand new motions for rule or bylaw.
Okay, I'll make that change before I send the slides out. Thanks, Sean. On other business, it's best to have specific topics for discussion instead of having an open-ended section that you've entitled other business on your agenda. And this was a point that Brian McAvoy, who's the secretary of the Ulster Council, made at our AGM and that was held in Montreal in 2019. And sometimes it's better just to have specific items on there instead of other business, which can be very open-ended. And you may want to consider a limited number of topics that should be discussed at your AGM after the new committee is in place. So some examples, you may want to have a high-level overview of planned events for the coming year and maybe some short discussion about that, or discussion about the club members who are also interested in taking positions on the divisional committee and or the county committee. So when you have your members in a room like that, these are obviously individuals who are interested in taking part at your AGM. The next meeting or the next AGM is held at the divisional level, and then the county AGM is held in early December. So again, there are positions on both the divisional committee as well as the county committee that all clubs will be receiving nomination forms. And this is an opportunity to discuss with your members at the meeting who has an interest in taking on that role. So make sure that that discussion gets held. Okay. Next slide. So subcommittees, briefly mentioned subcommittees there. They are appointed by the club executive committee. And essentially the subcommittee is a small group of individuals assigned to focus on a particular task or an area. It allows for decision-making by a smaller group of members. So you're all aware we've had the COVID-19 working group that was put in place in 2020. You know, and it was made up of a number of individuals. So we had representation across all the provinces, as well as some subject matter experts. So you provide the opportunity then to people to be involved in something like that. And they may be club members who don't want to be on the executive committee, but still want to play a role in the club. Depending on the remit of the subcommittee, a member of the executive committee will typically act as the chair. So you may want to set up a fundraising subcommittee, so focusing on financials, raising money. So you may look to the treasurer of the club maybe the ideal person then to chair that subcommittee. You may want to also, like fundraising, you may have a youth development. You want a subcommittee that's set up to specifically look at that. You may have a big event that's happening, or some of the social events. So you may want to set up a subcommittee that's focused on looking and organizing some of those decisions. So the executive committee, they set out the terms of reference and define the duties and retain control of the activities of the subcommittee. So any decisions that come out of the subcommittee do require approval of the executive committee prior to implementation. So again, good ideas, especially involving other individuals within your club who don't have a position on your executive committee, but do have a lot of background and knowledge to share, and maybe want to get involved at a different level, and not kind of at a senior committee level. Okay, next chart. Just briefly talking about the club constitution. As mentioned, it's a new one. It was sent out to all clubs just recently. It sets out the purpose and the rules of the club. It's the basic document which helps to ensure a smooth and proper running of your affairs. And it sets out the objectives for your club, what you want to do or provide for your members. Any additions or alterations to the rules of the club constitution are required to receive county board approval. And as well, there is a section within each club's constitution where you have to complete your club colors. There are a few questions, and the club constitution has to be filled out and signed and sent into the county secretary at the start of the year. So each club will be requested to ensure that the club constitution is signed, that the club is in agreement with that, and then it is submitted to the county. Sean, do you want to speak a little more maybe on the club constitution?
Not too much, other than to say that changes to the club constitution can only be made at the club AGM or a meeting called for that specific purpose.
And I'll just add to Angela that on Go membership, our member platform, there is for the club itself a place on there to upload your club constitution, and so that should be done annually as well as the financial statements can also be uploaded there as well. And then what's great about that is you've always got this central repository, just even for your own club from year to year, where those key documents are accessible by your, the ongoing committees.
Perfect. Next slide. I think there may be just one or two more slides to go through. Post your club AGM. Their clubs are responsible. There are a number of deliverables. They are responsible to send the following documents to the county secretary 4 weeks after holding the AGM. Those documents are the minutes from your AGM, the financial reports from your club, and then details of your newly elected committee, their position, their name, and their contact details. And there is a form that does get distributed to all the clubs that needs to be completed and then sent in to the county secretary. So this is also in our bylaws, and clubs are responsible to send these 4 weeks after holding their AGM.
And just to add for the financial reports, that the updated template for financial reporting, if you're not using an accounting system, then use the Excel spreadsheet, and it was updated with the new years because some of the fields are locked, but Angela had sent those out. Yeah.
So those were sent out earlier in the week, and we have it in both English and in French. Okay, and I think that's it. Yeah. So I'm just going to open the floor. Sean, if you want to maybe any questions or any comments you want to make about clubs and their AGMs.
No, none other than that this permit covers everything that's meant to be done at an AGM, Angela, and I think it'd be better if we had some questions or queries from the club. We'd like to hear what the people on the call have to say and talk about the presentation.
Okay, any questions? Liam, I see your hand up.
Yeah, hi, thanks for that. That was really helpful. Regarding, so if we decide to do our AGM in person, like within the provincial guidelines, are we also obligated to now give like a remote option for them to Zoom in as well, or use Teams in as well, or is it just one or the other? I'm sorry, it might have been listed on one of the documents you sent. I just haven't had a chance to read them.
I think you should. Well, I know in the past, Liam, at the county level, when we've had our AGM, we have had individuals. This is pre-COVID. We've had individuals in the room, and we've also provided the capability, and because it's for people across the country to dial into it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably the best idea, anyways, to offer both if we do it in person. I was just wondering if there was like a rule in place in case there was like technical difficulties or something like that.
No.
Cool.
Yeah, no, and the more people that you have attend, the better, right? I mean, it's fine end of the health of the club. It's great.
For sure. Thanks. Appreciate it.
Other questions?
And are all the clubs familiar with using Teams? You all, like the chair and secretary and now the treasurer, because they have an email account as well, all have access to all the suite of MS products. So one of those three positions can set up the Teams invite and send it, and you can do voting and chat and things on that. Are there any, you might have seen, if anyone who attended the county AGM would have seen that, but any questions on that or support needed?
Have any clubs that are on the call, have you already had your AGM? I think Edmonton were holding theirs on Friday night. I don't know if anyone else on the call has their AGM been set, or has it already been held?
I just have a quick question on the club accounts. Is there a date that they have to be complete by, or as long as they're complete by before the AGM, that's okay? Or when do they have to be shared with everybody else? Yeah.
Yeah, your club account. So the financial year end is September 30th. That was changed this year at Congress. It previously was October the 31st. So your financials should reflect up until the end of September.
And then
was that changed last year then? So will it only be 11 months of a financial year this year? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was changed at Congress earlier this year. So the financial is now September 30th. Yeah.
And they have to be shared with everybody else, like the county or whatever. What date is that they need to be shared by?
So it's part of the deliverables following the AGM. 4 weeks after that, the county has to be in receipt of the financials of the club.
But in advance of the AGM, it has to go out at least 10 days prior to your AGM to all of your members.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. Short and sweet.
I presume you'll be sending these slides out as well.
Send the slides out, yeah, and we'll also make the recording available. And again, there some of the documentation that's been sent. There was a document I sent there a few days ago, the club general meeting. It touches on this, plus there is a little more detail. So it's good for everyone to really be cognizant of how they should be running things. And again, the idea of sending information to your members in advance is that they're not seeing it the day they're there. People, your members have, everyone is responsible, but they should be having a view as to the financials and given enough time to look and understand and jot down any questions that they have. So it's important to give some advance notice and the documents that are going to be reviewed on the day. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much to all of you who joined. And again, if you have any questions or queries when it comes to this, please send me an email, and we'll make sure turn around. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thanks very much.
Bye.